Hey everyone, Brian from Bear Bull Traders here. It is the weekend, July 20th. Hope everyone is having a good weekend so far. Summertime, and yeah, this is the weekend video. So we'll take a look at what happened last week in the market, and then we'll take a look ahead and see what we got coming up this week. We're getting into the thick of earnings season, so it's going to be interesting to see what some of these big players are going to report here. So let's get down to it. Okay, so let's start out and take a quick look at what happened last week. We did see the continuation in the rotation of capital coming out of that sort of high-flying tech sector that we've seen over the last couple of months and going into the small caps, primarily based on the belief that the Fed is going to start aggressively cutting rates here starting in September. Over a 90% chance now we're going to see a rate cut in September. And of course, that's just was based on some of the CPI data we saw from over a week ago now. But, on the flip side, we had retail sales that came out this week, reported stronger than expected. Consumer seems to be okay, continuing to spend. So good economy and inflation sort of coming under control and putting in this impetus for the rates to come down here. So the Dow eked out a bit of a gain. You can see here by the action in the Qs and the SPY, we definitely lost some buying interest there, and it seemed to flow into this small cap IWM sector. Real estate and financials were the biggest gainers, and of course they're usually pretty good when interest rates drop. Technology, of course, and communication services down on the week. And Treasury yields actually didn't really change very much this week. The big drop happened the week before. US dollar, a little bit stronger based on some of these rates starting to creep back up a little bit, but nothing really of note. And Bitcoin, I guess, is the new Trump trade. And last week we were at 58,000, looking like we were threatening to break down. And this really snapped back here. And last I looked, it was 67,000. Could be different now, as you know, it's a 24/7 market. So that is what happened last week in the markets, apart from some other notable news like the CrowdStrike faux pas, sending out all that upgrade data, that software that crashed most of the PCs around the world. So that was kind of an interesting event to wrap up the week. Okay, so before we go on here, I always like to do a quick plug for my books that are available on Amazon. You can see them there: Profiting as an Active Trader, How to Swing Trade, my oldest book, and my latest book, How to Trade Options. And you'll notice I do talk a lot about options trades in the room here or on the video as well. So if you want to check those books out, they are available for sale. So let's get down and look at some charts here. All right, so let's go over some of the indexes and charts here. So we'll start out with the TLT, which is the long bond ETF. So when this price goes up, means the yields are going down. So you can see here we had this nice rebound after this CPI data, and it's come right back up into an area of prior resistance, which we expect. But I think with the predictions of Fed's starting to cut rates here fairly soon, maybe at the end of the summer, I think that the bottom has been put in on this, and it's looking pretty good right now, TLT. And that would be, bonds going up, price of bonds going up if the yields stay down. As far as the dollar goes, again, it's, when you get a bit of a pullback on the bond prices and the yields go back up a little bit, of course, the dollar responds accordingly. And you can kind of see here, we're kind of stuck in a range. We've been stuck in a range on the dollar for quite a while now. So skip over to the Qs, and quite interestingly, you can see here on the daily chart, we've lost both the 9 and the 20 EMA. You can see here we've been following this trend up since beginning of May. One time we did pierce through the 9, we did find support on the 20, but this time we've really broken down on this 20 EMA here. And we're right at a fairly critical area of support here, which is around this 474 level. We've got a gap to fill here at 468. and not a lot of volume in this range here, so it could easily drop down to 460. So Q's definitely under pressure right now, volume fairly substantial, so we'll see if it actually gets down to this level. I think this might be a good area, and once we get a gap fill, might be a decent area in here to load back up again. And for the time being, we'll just watch that. And then the SPY, again, daily chart, we've lost both the 9 and the 20. We are into an area that was prior resistance and eventually broke out from. Now we're right back to where we broke out from. So question is, I think on Monday, Tuesday, are we going to be able to hold this level, or are we going to sort of drop down into this 540 and then fill this gap here? Because you can see here again, very little volume in this area. So maybe there'll be an opportunity to get for this gap to fill, and maybe opportunity to get at least load up partially into that index, or some of the stocks that are in that index. Again, technology pretty heavily in the SPY, as well as the Qs, obviously. The Dow, again, a couple of bad days at the Thursday, Friday. We're down to this 9 EMA. We're kind of held on to that on Friday, and we're looking at maybe we drop down to the 20. This is prior area of resistance, which now becomes support. And again, not a lot of volume up in this area, so we could easily drop back down into this 400 level on the DIA, which is the ETF for the Dow. IWM, again, had a nice surge up on that low CPI print. Had a really nice run up. Both Andrew and I took TNA long, which is a levered ETF to the small caps. Got a really nice run on this, and kind of bailed on it early, but again, just a nice pop up from here to 223. It looks like we are still above the 9 EMA, and we'll see. But again, not a lot of volume built up in this area, so we may come back down and retest this 210 level, possibly as early as next week. And if we do, then maybe a good opportunity to buy in there as well. And again, Bitcoin. Bitcoin's actually trading over 67,000 now, 67,230. So there you go. I think Bitcoin, if you're looking for something to trade, maybe something to jump into, I think Bitcoin could easily be going to 70,000. So a number of ways to play that. There's lots of Bitcoin ETFs as well. So Bitcoin looking fairly strong here, and probably is going to continue higher. So that is how the indexes look. So not a lot to talk about in terms of current positions. I have really lightened up on all the tech sector stuff, pretty much sold everything that I was in Apple, Alphabet, all Amazon, all the tech sector stocks, and sitting with a fair amount of cash right now. I'm just looking at for opportunities, but as I said, when I went through the indexes and the IWM, this is the TNA. I traded that over a week ago, got into it, swung it through the last weekend, and sold it last week. Didn't hit the top, but I kind of figured that this area here was going to be resistance, and we kind of blew through that. But again, got a nice move on that one. BA, I keep talking about this. I'm still in these August calls. They're going to expire worthless, which is fine because I'm short them. And TLT, I'm still short the 91 puts that are going to expire soon. And one trade I do have on right now, and was given to me by one of our other moderators, Megan threw this idea out. So I am long puts. So I'm long the 120 puts, which means I am short biased on NVIDIA. I think it may break down a little bit further here. She's targeting 110, which is this area right here. We'll see what happens next week. It's right at an area of prior support here, so we may end up getting a bit of a bounce, but short of a small number of shares. or a small number of contracts through of NVIDIA. So that's kind of the current positions that to speak of right now. So as far as stocks that I am scouting next week, I'm still watching this as I just wrapped up with those currents. I'm still watching NVIDIA. I'm thinking it is going to go lower, but we'll see what happens on Monday. If it does bounce, I'll have to get out of that position. But this is a sort of a critical area of support for NVIDIA right now. If it continues to break down, I think the opportunity actually would be to add to that position. So we'll see what happens with NVIDIA. As far as other opportunities, I'm kind of interested in Adobe. Adobe's had a really nice run up, had a good gap up for earnings. And you can see here, we're sitting right on the 20 EMA. I'm going to be watching this to see if we can hold this and bounce back up. Might be a good opportunity to either get into it or sell some downside puts if it seems to want to hold in this area. Microsoft really took a hit on this breach that, or at least this software screw up that CrowdStrike had. But it did actually not respond too badly. We have broken down through the 9 and the 20, and the actual 9 and 20 are crossing over. But I think, it did sell off, but it actually behaved fairly well for the news that came out. So we actually started out at the low of the day and actually came back up. So something to keep an eye on here. This seems to be, this 430 level seems to be a area maybe where Microsoft is going to hold. Hack is another interesting one. Hack is the ETF for the cybersecurity space. Of course, that one took a bit of a hit with CrowdStrike being a big part of that. But I think we're down into an area of support here where we might see a bounce, because obviously I think this is an important sector of the economy. Intel was one I was watching. I never did pull the trigger on this one, unfortunately. It does look like it's going to come back and fill this gap here. Maybe if it does, might be a good opportunity still to get into it. But again, we're back down through the 9 and held on the 20, at least on Friday. So we'll see where it goes on Monday, if it can hold here. But Intel, sort of the big beneficiary if this whole reaction was based on some comments that the potential new president had made regarding the defense of Taiwan, and Intel being a onshore supplier of chips. If everything does go sideways with Taiwan and China, Intel will probably be one of the big beneficiaries, because they have the onshore manufacturing capability to not necessarily fill the gap, but at least fill the gap partially on supply of chips. Anyway, and Netflix had an interesting day. Of course, they reported on Thursday. This was the reaction Friday. Subscriber growth, revenue growth. I think cash flow was down a bit. So I guess the overall reaction seemed to be investors couldn't figure out if it was good or bad. So I'm going to be watching this one to see if it did really sell off during the day here, as you can see. Came back down right into an area where there should be lots of support here. There was resistance here, broke out, pulled back, and then bounced higher from there. So we're right back to this area again. Fairly high volume, so we may be back into this range here on Netflix. Might be an opportunity to sell some puts, or if it does go lower, just watch to see where it maybe bottoms out. So those are kind of the ones I am watching for next week, and I don't generally like to trade stocks going into earnings. I will occasionally look at them to see if the implied volatility it warrants the risk, but generally speaking, we'll just wait and see what the reaction is to earnings and then trade them from there. So that's it for potentials for next week. All right, so wrapping things up here, there's where we sit on the various levels. Some of these are areas of support right now, so we'll be watching those next week. As far as economic events goes, we've got this PCE index, which is the Fed's favored tool to watch for inflation, that comes out Friday, so everybody will be anticipating that number. As far as earnings go, you can see we've got a fair amount of stuff lined up here. Tesla, Google, or Alphabet, that should be interesting. And yes, lots of others on deck here. Visa, Spotify, IBM, Chipotle, lots to watch for. So that's it, everybody, and hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you on Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Engineering the Markets will open live on YouTube, and then trading into the open. So have a good one, everyone, and hopefully we will see you Monday.